Welcome back, everyone, for week 2 of Best Bet. And what a doozy this one is going to be. I am your host, Frank Scatoni. And let me ask you this. If you had a chance to win $550,000 in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, would you bet your entire $97,000 bankroll on Flightline to win? Well, today's guest did just that, and he turned a 2 to 5 shot into a 9 to 2 shot. So we'll talk about that and so much more in just a bit. But first, weekly reminder, this is not a traditional selection show. We are not going to talk about every race. We're just going to look at specific races and wagering strategies that offer the best opportunity to make a decent score. If you're watching live, feel free to send us a question or a comment. The show will also be archived on Del Mar's Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube platforms, and I'll be tweeting it out as well. So without further ado, let me introduce today's special guest, the 2002 Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge champion and winner of $550,000, Drew Coatney. Drew, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you on because I know a lot of people out there are wondering just how you pulled off your BC. The way I see it, you kind of looked at the contest like a chess game where you knew you needed to make 2 or 3 perfect moves on the board to take down the biggest prize. So was that your strategy going into the contest? And then kind of walk us through how you...
Yeah, so my strategy in contests now has evolved over the past couple of years, thanks to a lot of great players like Matt Miller. And really it's about reducing variability and increasing probability to get to the magical number of $140,000. And so based on what we were seeing over internationally as horse players, we were going to have access to Flightline around 2 to 5. So I thought that was the target. On Wednesday night, I had plotted a course to figure out a way to wager $100,000 on Flightline. Came up a little short of that, but the tote board helped me out to get to the almost 140,000. And then there was just a few other chess moves that had to happen prior to that to get catapulted up to that $100,000 mark. And most of those were going to be on Saturday. If you look at my plays, which are all published on Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge website, Friday and 2-year-olds was variability. So 2-year-olds have a lot of volatility in who can step up. Look at Fort as a great example, taking down Cave Rock. And just wanted to go through minimums and get alive to Saturday. I was down to, I think, $3,200 or $3,600 before I started my charge on the leaderboard.
So that was after day 1. And then day 2, how did you start to build your bankroll to get to that 100K target?
Yeah, I had a big $2,500 double on Highfield Princess. That busted. And then was left with, I think it was 36 or 3,200, and started with a Cody's Wish into Tuesday and in Italian, and was able to get that rocking and rolling. And then was able to then take some more bankroll, go all in Tuesday into Jackie's Warrior, and can kind of move the chessboard around a little bit, and then was able to cash on the Tuesday bet for 5,000. That allowed me to take and cover off Elite Power into Modern Games, and that was the goal. That was like step 1, was to be able to wager $40,000 on, $20,000 on Modern Games to pay out 40, and the Elite Power into Modern Games was paying like 18 to 1 ish. And so was able to have that 2,300 times to get to the 40,000. And then was a simple Dutch win bet, which we'll talk about, between Malathot and Clairiere and the distaff to get to 100, and then 100 on Flightline. So not trying to stab or not trying to take any crazy risk, but trying to figure out what's likely to happen.
So win bets and doubles were your bread and butter for the tournament, just keeping it simple and figuring out. The beauty of that is because the pools are so big at the Breeders' Cup, you can bet a sizable amount of money and not have your odds change too much. So you could actually have a target and stick to it and hit it if you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the key strategy pieces too is doubles into the classic because of what you're just describing. A lot of people going in concentrated on certain horses in the contest really depreciate the value in doubles as well. So avoiding the turf was part of my strategy throughout, because not only did you have a lot of Euro shippers coming in that looked pretty close on form, like Mishriff was a great example, horse I loved. It was kind of the swan song for the horse. But at the same token, you had a lot of other great horses in there as well. So trying to stay as nimble as possible and not push, even though it was aggressive near the end, to not push all in, but to gain momentum and ammo to start building that bankroll to achieve those like targets along the way to get to 100,000. Right. So it's kind of like a crossword puzzle. You got to play what's given to you and try and figure out how to solve it in as fast a way possible.
I love it. So you're sitting at 97,000. You're in first place going into the last race. You knew going into it that if you were at that point in the contest, you were going to push all in on Flightline.
Yeah.
Easier said than done. How do you have the stones to go up to the machine and punch Flightline to win for $97,000? Like that's not amount of money, Drew.
Yeah, and it's you know, the way I look at it is
a little bit, but
whoops. Yeah, so the way I look at it was it was a game, right? And I was there to win that game on the day, and so it really wasn't 97,000 of my money I was investing, and my wife was along for the whole ride as well, so she knew the math that this is a once in a lifetime chance to take a 2-5 and do a 9-2. Now, Marshall Graham did raise a great point that if I did nothing, that becomes a 32 or a 3-2 win bet with zero risk. Meaning, if I sat on 97,000 with the prize money in, you can assume that I was going to collect around 150 or 200,000. So it's a fascinating case study in psychology and risk tolerance, but for me, it was always about winning that title more than anything, because as horse players, that's the pinnacle. And taking the 100,000 to walk into the gate with Flightline with the potential title on the line, I don't think it gets any better than that.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. But did you ever sit there and waver a little bit and go, well, you know, if I bet $2,000 worth of exactas, I could still maybe get to my target number and or you know, end up at 95. Like what was the thought? Or you were just like, that's it. I'm all in on Flightline. That was my plan. That's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, that was it. I think I had a smidgen of hesitation and turned to some people like, right, I'm not stupid. This isn't like just to make sure I wasn't stepping into a landmine. But after that, it was pretty much, yeah, that was what I had mapped out. You know, one of the great lessons that I've learned as well from some of the greatest contest players like Matt Miller, like I mentioned, like Sean Borman, is to not be looking at the program, but to be thinking strategy on the day. So I didn't even handicap a race on the day because all the work was done on Wednesday night. And it was all about how to get to those target numbers to get to 140 in the least amount of way things to have to go right. So, right, you could get to 140,000 easily if 8 things go right, but how do you keep redacting down that list?
Right. Yeah, I think you want to try to take the shortest route possible to get there. And it seems like you executed it to perfection. And I love that for this seminar today, you want to treat today's races kind of like a mini contest. We're going to start with a $100 bankroll, and your target for today is 2,000. And we're going to go through the races you want to talk about step by step to get there. But let me ask you before we do that, is that how you play when you sit down and you're ready to play the races? You give yourself a target and try to get there?
Yeah, because I'm not a professional, so my livelihood does not depend on this money. And the way I view it is, I used to be a horizontal pick 3, pick 4 player day in, day out. And it ended up becoming almost like a bit of a slot machine game where the strategy was efficient wagering, but instead of playing the pick 4 where maybe there's a race you don't like and you have to use the all button, this allows you to play an entire day's worth of races to think through like a simulated contest. Today, trying to force at least 5 minimum bets out of the total, I think 9 races we have on the card today, and really try and go to get to a target. And that target then, for anyone at home playing along, that target can feed into a contest. That 2,000 can be 2/3 of the way to a grade 1 gamble entry, or for the Del Mar contest that's coming up next Saturday for $3,000. So it's a fun way to not only efficiently wager, but also hone those strategies for contests, so that when you do get put in these positions where maybe you have to dance on your toes a little bit and get creative, you can start to react more naturally instead of having to sit down and go, oh my gosh, what has to happen now? Which led to all these tickets on the table that we're seeing.
And I love that because, this kind of strategy allows you to choose the races you want to play. You're not locked into having to play, 2 lousy races you're not interested in, a pick 4 or a pick 5. You pick and choose your own races, handicap them accordingly, and bet to get to a certain number. So I know we jumped right into the BCBC because that's super exciting, but I'd like to learn a little bit more about you, and I'm sure the audience would as well. How did you get involved in racing? What's your background? What is your involvement now, etc.?
Yeah, so racing's not my full-time job, but I started in 2014. I was commuting and just listening to podcasts and stumbled into the DRF Players podcast, as we affectionately call the place with the letters. And
with Pete Fornatel and Jonathan Kinchin, right?
And Matt Bernier as well.
And Matt, oh yeah, that's right, Matt, of course.
And so I learned through those guys really how to play the races, be smart with my plays, and also Steve Bick's show, to be an insider and think how trainers do, hear what they have to say, and hear also what the professional bettors have to say as well. And then around 2018 or 19, Peter was looking for another kind of job because his road had ended at the place with the letters, and called him up and said, hey, I've got an idea. I think we can really build upon this audience that you've created. I don't want to see this show go away. This is, you guys are practically my teachers at this point. And so we were able to build In the Money Media and continue to grow that platform as it is today at inthemoneypodcast.com, and continue to grow that to now we have written content and a half a dozen podcasts anywhere you find your podcasts. And so by sticking myself out and working with Pete and that team, which I had never built a racing business before, was able to just continue to help those folks and work through it, and then network my way around the horse racing industry to continue to grow my game. I'll always remember I was a pick 4 player, pick 3 player, and called up Marshall Graham, never talked to him before, and said, hey, I'm in a slump. What do you recommend? Right. And the old pick 1, like stop trying to hit something with a laser pointer from miles away. Why don't you just play the pick 1 and take whatever you were going to play in that pick 4 and put it on your strongest opinion in the sequence? Because you're going to be right a lot more than you're wrong in that situation versus trying to play the pick 4. So trying to increase your probability and start to see, as Jonathan Kitchen says, the ball go through the hoop, so you can build momentum and confidence in your play.
Right. I love that. Excellent way to slump buster. Everybody wants to hit a pick 4, pick 5, or pick 6, with visions of this huge score. But, you have to have the bankroll because you're going to go through a lot of losses, and it does shake your confidence. Absolutely. So if you just keep it simple, make a win bet, start building your bankroll up, get that confidence back, you can do some damage. Last 2 topics I want to talk about before we actually get into the races. A, what is your handicapping process? And B, I know we touched on win bets and doubles, but also what is your wagering approach?
Yeah, so handicapping approach is DRF formulator with time form US figures as well, and replay work. So those 3 kind of marry up. First, it's what's the pace look like, who's the most likely on figures, and then start to dive into any clues that might be there on the actual replay. So for example, if I see the time form pace projector or the time form pace in previous races were showing something like a pace collapse, right? Actually going back and watching for myself, was that really what transpired? Was there a bias on the day? Because at the end of it, Craig Mikowski and team, they're trying the best they can with the numbers, but the visual eye also helps give some clues. And then once I get that work done, then I scatter and hear what other experts have to say as well, because this is a game of it's a really, really, really tough game. So trying to rely on yourself solely is a bit foolish, in my opinion. And for the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge Tuesday, I kind of was between Nashua on Tuesday, listened to the trainer speak on Tuesday, and also Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punchers in the UK today. Loved Tuesday
Rob,
as well, and was able to make the tie for me. So call me a bit of sellout in that regards, but I do listen to others that are publishing work out there, because it just gives you different perspectives to continue to challenge yourself. Am I thinking about this the right way?
I love that, and I love that you mentioned Rob Dove. Pete Fornatell and I go way back, and many years ago we went to York Racecourse, and that's where Rob was living, and he and his wife at the time took us in, graciously hosted us, and we had the absolute best time. And talk about a sharp pro punter, one of the best. I agree with you, one of the best in the world. Okay, well let's put our money where our mouth is. I know Drew wants to start off with $100 bankroll. The goal being to make $2,000 today. If he's right, we'll be up $2,000. If he's wrong, we're only at $100. I also want to mention that last year's Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge champion, Matt Miller, was on the show, and he had a really good winner, and he crushed a double. So no pressure at all here, Drew. But I do want to say Matt has graciously offered a $2,000 donation to the Thoroughbred Retirement Fund if you hit your $2,000 goal today. So you got your work cut out for you, buddy. Let's dig right in. We're going to start off with race 1. That's the first race you want to talk about. It's a $32,000 claimer. Non-winners of 2 lifetime for fillies and mares, going 8 furlongs on the turf. The rails are at 18 feet today. The morning line favorite is number 6, Consternation, at 9-5. She's been knocking at the door, but she hasn't exactly shown the eye of the tiger. In fact, she's lost twice already at this level before, and 2 back, she couldn't get the job done as the favorite up at Golden Gate. I like that you picked this race because I thought this was a very vulnerable favorite today. What are you going to do here, Drew?
Yeah, and before I dive in, I want to say, like, getting to 2,000 may feel like running a marathon, right? I've never ran in the last year. How do I get started, right? And that's how I break these down as well. And so the key is to have at least $500 in race 7 to invest in wagers. And we'll explain what that means in a second. So in the early part of the card, let's get to 500, and then let's take that 500, get even money return on race 7 to get to 1,000, and then 1,000 into a final race. So everyone with me here, we're having 100. We need to get to 500. 500 is going to try and get to even money to get.
I think our internet's being a little wonky.
Yeah, is it on my side or is it on your side here? I've got another internet
talking
connection.
About how to get to a certain point. Are you there, Drew? Are you back?
I am. Is it my internet or yours? Do you want me to find another?
It's probably mine because I'm here on the track and the internet's been wonky since the start of the meet. We'll just keep powering through, but I just think it's funny. Maybe I messed it up because Matt wanted to chime in here. No pressure, buddy. Everyone's watching and listening, so you got to take us to the finish line. But
awesome.
Go ahead and finish up what you were saying.
Yeah. So getting to $500 early on so that we can invest all 500 in race 7, and then taking the 500 that we got, build it to 1,000, and 1,000 into a final step. So again, trying to not just run a marathon, but make smaller steps to get to the marathon goal at the end of it. So with this race, the number 3 Frazzled, I feel like this horse is a speed type of horse in an event that I think really doesn't have a ton of pace. And today gets the second start for the trainer. And in a paceless race where I like to start from, if there's someone who has comparable figures that could win this race in a pace edge, why not take the speed horse at Del Mar, tight turns, and hopefully get a speed favoring type of ride. So pretty simple approach to me, nothing creative with the number 3 Frazzled.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. When I looked at this race, I said, oh, this is the horse. I love that he was a waiver claim protected last time. I think that was just a fitness race off the long layoff. Hernandez, the top jock in the colony, sticks around. So let's say you're going to do your $30 to win bet. what do you think? I'm thinking the horse will probably go off at 2-1. Is it?
Yep.
Do you do value lines? Do you have a, will you not bet a horse if a horse is way below a value line, or if you have your plan, you just stick to it?
Yeah, I mean, there is a value line, right? If this horse is going off at 4-5, it's a pass. So what plays
Right.
we're giving out has to be a bit adjustable. But for this play, in the context of the contest I'm running, the play is to get some ammunition so that later when I'm all in on a Dutch double, I then can have ammo and cover off a horse if I'm live to have the same will pay effect that I'm looking for. So let's just say it's 2-1. We're going to have $100 more to invest. Look for a 3-1 or a 4-1 just to build that bankroll to, again, achieve that target that we're looking to get to.
Okay. All right. So that's race 1. We'll see how the bankroll is built after that race. And then your next targeted race is race 4. It's a $100,000 optional claimer, conditional allowance, contested at 6 furlongs on the main track. It's basically a non-winners of 3 lifetime allowance optional claimer, but it also allows for horses who have not won 65,000 twice since July 7th. So that really opens this race up to some nice horses, including some stakes winners, like the morning line favorite number 3, Ginobilli, at 2-1. He's a grade 2 winner. So this is a really good race with good horses. I had a hard time figuring out the winner here, but it looks like you have some strong opinions.
Yeah, and this may as well be a bit of a graded stakes event, right? And I think there's many angles to look at here with the layoff types and can they return to form. And I'm siding with a bit of a newcomer with speed, as the event doesn't look, again, to be too speed heavy in the 6 furlong event with the number 6 Forbidden Kingdom. I have installed in the morning line of 5-2 and was facing some of the best in the Derby Trail back in the spring. Has absolute speed, but never could hold in those route events. And the last event was a speed and fade job, but we're going to excuse that off that really long layoff. 2 other things impacted that number. Hernandez protected the horse on that day and wrapped up around the 16th pole, and today gets Lasix. So could help things if Forbidden Kingdom maybe had bled or needed a bit more stamina. I think with the medication and the second off the layoff, the number 6 Forbidden Kingdom feels like a solid bet for me. And then the number 3 Ginobili is going to be the other horse to use at 2-1. The last win at the Pat O'Brien grade 2 was, I think, a little circumstantial. And then 2 back faced Life is Good and ran a really great second and surprised me. Last out just couldn't get the job done. So cuts back and is a real question mark as to what's going to happen with this horse. Are we going to see that mid 70s, 80s buyer horse we saw in 2020 and 2021? Or is Ginobili going to get back onto form and throw up another triple digit? I want to see this horse one more time, but I'll still be wagering on number 3 Ginobili in the doubles. So 6-3 for me. And what looks like, I think we're going to see some great value, because I don't know if the betting public's going to land on one favorite solely in this race. So when we're looking towards doubles into the next, I think we're really going to see some great prices, 12, 15-1. When you talk about value lines, Frank, right there it is. I need to see 12 or 15-1 based on the $70 of the rest of the bankroll I'm looking to wager in race 4.
Right. And then that's the beautiful thing about the double. It's like, when you play this game, you want to try to have as much information as possible to maximize your opinions. And with the double, you can look at the probables and you can see the combination, see if there's a certain combo that's being overbet, which is causing value in the other with the other combinations. I love that, because especially the way you play, Drew, you can see what your potential payoff is and then weight your bets accordingly, knowing if you have to bet a little more on a combo you like, or that you don't have to bet, you don't have to bet as much and preserve some of your bankroll. So charting doubles is one of my favorite things to do, because I do believe that's where you can really find value.
Yeah, and so the whole point of this race, get to 500. So open up Excel and hit 500 as the payout and what the probables are going to be, and let that dictate how much the investment. So this could flip-flop, but I do think the betting public is going to latch onto the number 6 a little bit more than the 3. But who knows? We'll see how this progresses. But my strong opinion is the number 6 Forbidden Kingdom in here.
All right, so we're starting doubles in race 4, going into race 5. I thought this was a pretty competitive race. It's a $50,000 starter allowance, contested at 5 furlongs on the turf. The morning line favorite is number 7, Wyfire, at 5-2 from Mark Latt and Flavian Pratt. So you talked about being alive in the doubles, and it looks like you're singling Wyfire here to close it out. Talk to us about this race.
Yeah, and I'll talk to you about the horse first. The number 7 Wyfire at 5-2. I had a terrible trip last out with the slow break and the dirt track cutover at Santa Anita. The horse completely jumped over it and got shuffled back and had to sit the pocket for way too long while the favorite had just absolute clear running room on the outside. Today, I don't see a ton of speed again. That's a reoccurring theme, and should be able to easily press and sit wide. I don't mind the wide post draw on this one, just because it gives so many more options for where the horse needs to be placed. And like I was saying before, if Frazzled wins, I can then take that money and dump it into this race, because as you're mentioning, I don't think we're going to see a horse below 2-1 on the tote board. So any horse at 3-1, 4-1 can take that $90 or $100, if assuming 3-1, 2-1 is where Frazzled pays, to take that and place that into the pool and a win bet. So now we're sitting as another option to get to that $500 target across maybe 2 or even 3 horses.
Right, so you're giving yourself some leeway there to still get to your number.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, well, building a bankroll, and here's where things start to get really interesting. We're going to move on to race 7, an optional claimer, non-winners of 1 for fillies and mares, going 5 furlongs on the turf. The morning line favorite distinction goes to number 3, Phenom, at a tepid 7-2. She just broke her maiden in wire fashion, going 6.5 furlongs on the main turf course at Santa Anita as the 4-5 favorite. She got an easy lead and never looked back. I think the waters get much deeper for her today. I thought this was a really good race to take a swing in, and it looks like you have some decent prices as your opinions here.
Yeah. And so I have 2 horses that I want to use in here. The number 7 Woodbine Way at 4-1. I think it's going to get the exact pace scenario this horse has been looking for. The wide outside draw, allow the speeds to go and make that one run late. And the last few trips have been a little bit of trouble checking and steadying. So with a little bit of race luck at 4-1, the number 7 Woodbine Way is a great way for me to go. And then also backing up with the number 4 Tom's Beauty at 4-1. I think it's the real wild card in here with the lightly raced, and the last out effort was blah, but I think fits on the figures and form of the pressing style that I think can cover off the other pace scenario, right? If Woodbine Way doesn't get the setup, number 4 Tom's Beauty is going to be pressing to get right back on track for us. So I'm going to use something unique here, because remember what I said. I'm targeting to have $500 in this race. I want to have $1,000 exiting this race. I only need even money. So depending on the tote board, I'm going to sprinkle that 500 across these 2 and maybe 3. If Phenom is 4-1 and Tom's Beauty is 4-1 and Woodbine Way is 4-1, I can easily take all 3 horses to get even money. All I need is $1,000 out of this race. And so, although some of the EV police may come at me and say that's a terrible way to wager, again, I'm playing in a mini contest of my own today to hone skills and practice. I'm playing on a big stage like the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. So my target is to have $1,000 walking out of this race. I want to bet $500 into it to get to that $1,000 target that we'll talk about what the ultimate last play will be that the $1,000 will be used for. And I think we may have lost Frank. So I'm going to carry this on here with race number 9, Frank. I'm going to keep race number 8, the Bob Hope Stakes, going 7 furlongs for 2-year-olds, going on the dirt track. A fantastic rendition of this race with Bob Baffert mostly having the entire field. And I'm going to be on the number 2, Havnameltdown at 6-5. And again, I want to take that $1,000 on number 2 and put that in there to hit the target of $2,000. And so I just feel like this Bob Baffert horse is the best in the barn. I think the distance fits perfectly. And I did consider the number 7 Newgate at 5-2, but with the blinkers coming off and had tried to stretch out in the Breeders' Cup Futurity and got burned up in the pace. I just don't know if the wide draw and the stable mates to the inside are really what this horse wants. So
Yeah,
I'm going to
be. The internet's being a little weird here at the racetrack.
No problem. We're covering off the last race here.
Taking bankroll and doing Dutch win bets to get to $1,000 on number 7 Woodbine Way and number 4 Tom's Beauty in race 7. And then if he's right in that race, he was going to push all in on number 2 Havnameltdown, who I also think is the.
Oh no, we lost Frank again. That's all right. We'll keep this rolling. As we say in the Money Players podcast, the show keeps rolling. And so I'm glad to hear Frank is siding with me and having a meltdown, which what his internet's doing right now. And I just do think that this horse is going to be the best. You know, the one thing that does scare me with the number 7 Newgate is going back and looking at Fort and Loggins and that speed pace duel at the mile and the 16th. And if you are a believer in stats, Bob Baffert is 41% out of 32 runners taking the blinkers off. So I think there's a little bit of signal in there, and you may be able to cover yourself off in maybe side bets with a little bit of 7 over the 2 to make sure that we get paid in this. But the number 2 all in, trying to get to the magical $2,000 spot, that's what's going to be for the day. So hopefully Matt Miller will be making a donation, and we'll be doing a dance for the rest of the audience.
All right. So can you hear me now? My internet was wonky. I kept going in and out, but you can hear me. Okay. Because I actually missed, and I want to hear before we wrap this up in a couple of minutes. Talk to us one more time about the concept of Dutching, because I think that's a very interesting strategy that a lot of people A, know nothing about, and B, wouldn't even know how to execute.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in the context of the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. One of my targets, like I've been talking about here today, trying to get to $500, one of my targets was $40,000 to wager in the distaff. Because to get to 100,000, I was going to use a couple horses. That was Clariere at 4-1, and Malathot was floating between 5-2 and 3-1. So I was able to invest 40,000 to weight the bets appropriately. I think it was around 30 or 25,000 on the shorter priced horse Malathot, and about 15,000 on Clariere to again get to the number of 100,000. So just doing some simple math on the background to make sure A, are you hitting your target, and B, are you getting the best of it in the tote pool? And a great example of where not to do this, right, was Nest in that race. Nest was 6-5, I think. So even if I pushed all 40,000 in, that's still not going to get to the 100,000. And if I went all in on Nest and Nest won, I'm still going to go all in on Flightline. And I think I would have had 85,000. And I actually would have came up short getting snapped by Jim Vittich. So all about trying to hit your targets on the right spots at the right time and trying to figure out where that number is going to go. When the race opens and you see your horse like having a meltdown, if having a meltdown's 1-5, we're in some deep water, and we're going to have to dance on our toes here. So we'll caveat all of this with you got to play the tote board and what the defense gives you, as they say.
Right. So how is the sweat waiting for that photo to come up in the Breeders' Cup distaff? 3 horses on the wire. You had 2 of them. You didn't have the one in the middle, right?
You know, and when I'm at home, I'm rooting and going crazy. This was a much more like business-like kind of. I'm just locked in playing a game, and I couldn't control it, right? And I think as horse players, we need to conserve our emotional capital that we have for the most important decisions. And freaking out about a photo wasn't going to help me advance my decision making by any means. So I was, I think, fairly calm and collected. You may ask some other people that were with me their perception, but for me, it was, I don't love it, but let's see what happens.
Watching live, who did you think won the race?
So we were positioned right just after the 16th pole. I thought Malathot got through easily, and then when we regrouped with our entire group down near the finish line, everyone was a little nervous. So thank goodness Blue Stripe didn't get the best of the bob, because that was maybe one of the closest photos I've had, and I'm not complaining about a photo for a while from here on out.
All right. Well, John Lees is on the microphone here at Del Mar. We're going to wrap things up. Big thanks to Breeders' Cup betting champion Drew Coatney for joining us, sharing with us not only his handicapping approach, but also his strategy for winning live bankroll tournaments and being a successful player. Sorry about the internet. I'm going to have Drew.
Yeah, and while Frank's breaking up here, Mark T, I see you asked the question, what was the race 7 pick? We'll go back to race 7. I believe it was 2 horses here. Number 7, Woodbine Way, and number 4, Tom's Beauty.
All right. Am I back? Can you hear me? Because I'm going to wrap things up.
You're back. Wrap it up.
Okay. Thanks again, Drew, for joining us and sharing not only your handicapping approach, but more importantly, your strategy for winning live bankroll tournaments and for being a successful player in the long run. Sorry about the internet, everybody. We're going to have Drew back when I have a better connection. But he was awesome with such good information. As I always like to say, good luck to us and let's make some money. See everybody next week. Thanks for watching.